And the time has come. I'm very excited. On the show next, we have Mr. Chris Thomas, who is the CEO of Transplant Australia, a position that he's had for, I think, about 9 years. They're a world leader in the world sport for transplants for many years. Chris is passionate about what he does, and he's done huge things for the game. And I'm really excited. This is a big deal for us, isn't it? So, Mr. Chris Thomas, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, fantastic to be here, and thanks for helping us to promote the World Transplant Games, which kicks off in Perth this weekend.
I know, counting down. So we know you're very busy, and so we really appreciate you giving us this time. Wonderful opportunity for us here in Perth to host the Games. But for all our listeners out there, can you perhaps share a little bit about what this Games is all about?
Yeah, thanks, SD. So right across the world, there are thousands of people currently waiting for a life-saving organ transplant. And so they're waiting for, a heart transplant, livers, kidney, lungs, maybe a pancreas, because they might have received, diabetes at some stage. And one of the best ways to encourage those people to be able to receive a transplant is to actually cast, a spotlight on the living proof of those people who have actually, received the gift of life. And so we hold this world event called the World Transplant Games every 2 years, right across the world, for people who have been lucky enough to have received the gift of life. And they come along to a sporting event. It's a week long, 17 sports, 6 days, to celebrate their own life that they've received because through the gift of organ donation. To say thank you to those donors, and to try to encourage other people to think positively about organ donation. So that's in a sense what the essence of the World Transplant Games is all about.
That's fantastic.
Chris, it's Fazman here. How you going?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Fazman. Good to speak with you.
Yeah, you too. Tell us a little bit about the bid process and the funding behind this. Who's behind it? Is it something the government get behind, or tell us about that?
Yeah, so there's a group called the World Transplant Games Federation. I'm wearing many hats at these games because I'm actually the CEO of Transplant Australia, but I'm also the president of that World Federation. And it receives bids from different countries or different host cities for the games. So it's a little bit like, I'm going to say it's a mini Olympic Games bid process, just without all of the incentives. And for our games, Houston in Texas was very keen on the games, and Perth was obviously a standout candidate. The next games in 2025 will actually be held in Dresden in Germany, and after that they're going to Belgium. So different countries are very keen to win this bid because it helps elevate the importance of organ donation in their communities. And of course, we're really fortunate that the federal government, through the Office for Sport, and there's a national authority called the Organ and Tissue Authority, they got behind it as well, because we can do better, in Australia in terms of our donation rates. And the essence of the World Transplant Games is it's a great marketing program. It casts, a spotlight on those people who have had a transplant and are now able to excel in their love of sport, which is, our national pastime. And so governments get behind it. We're really fortunate the West Australian government has also, supported the games. They're interested in sport, they're interested in tourism, and they're also, interested in the health benefits, of organ donation.
Because if I'm right, there is a shortage of organ donations, not just within Australia, but it is a worldwide challenge. Is that right?
Yeah, look, it's a really significant issue. There's 1,800 people across Australia today waiting for a life-saving transplant. It's a funny area, transplantation, because it's not one particular disease, modality itself. It comes from a whole variety of different areas. So they might have been born with cystic fibrosis and Now they need a lung transplant. They might have developed a virus around their heart muscle called cardiomyopathy, and that now only a new heart will help them live. They might have developed a lifestyle disease and had some obesity and diabetes, and now they need a kidney transplant. Some people are born with a liver condition. So transplantation is almost like the fallback of the sport. Everything else has failed. These people have end-stage organ failure, and now the only thing that can save them really is a life-saving transplant. And we've got a shortage in Australia. We've got last year, sadly, only 54% of families of eligible donors. So people who are actually in an intensive care unit, they're on a ventilator. They've been declared. It's a difficult discussion, but they've been declared clinically brain dead. And those people could go on to save others, but in only 54% of occasions, those families actually said yes. So, many organs actually just, unfortunately, sadly go to waste. And when you've got 1,800 people waiting, that's a scenario we'd like to turn around.
Absolutely. Now, before we talk about the competition itself, what is the best way for our listeners, if they're not already down as an organ donor, to make that happen?
Yeah, so the most important thing is you go to donatelife.gov.au and you register your decision to save others. And then the second thing is you tell your family, your friends about it. The reason why it's so important to tell people about it now is because the last place you want to discuss it as a family is around that intensive care bed that I referred to before. If you've never spoken about donation and then, you've been going about your lives normally, you've got a phone call that one of your loved ones has taken ill, you've rushed into the hospital, you've come to the realisation, the sad realisation that loved one is actually, has passed away, they're clinically brain dead, but they're on a ventilator just sustaining their body. And at that point in time, if that's the very first time you think about organ donation, it's a really confronting, question. Whereas if you've discussed it, around the family dining room table or around the barbecue, it's so much easier to then support that person's decision.
Chris, if you're concerned about maybe the quality of your organs, if you've been like me and over the years had a few red wines, you're a bit concerned about your kidneys or your liver, do people have testing along the way to check the condition of them so that they can qualify, or is it just something that later on in life, when unfortunately a tragedy happens, that the doctors and surgeons make those calls?
Yeah, so if you should never rule yourself out, because even your corneas may help someone have sight for many years to come. Just recently, we commemorated the Bali bombs that went off, was that 21 years ago, I think now? And many of those people lived because of skin transplants. Now, those skin transplants had to come from someone. Yep. So you should never rule yourself out. You're never too old. But what happens is that if you are medically eligible, as I've discussed, the doctors will then do a detailed, analysis of your health history. If you've had cancer, they obviously don't want to take an organ from you and give it to someone else that might have, some cancer in it. So they'll do a really thorough testing to make sure that those organs are viable and will be able to give the person who receives them, many years of future life.
It's phenomenal work that you're doing, and you've been involved for a very, very long time. Is this something quite personal to you?
Well, yeah, look, I've certainly been in that intensive care unit. In fact, with my own mother, I've actually just turned 60 this year, but when I was 23, and I was a journalist on newspapers many years ago, my mother took ill suddenly and had a stroke and passed away, and we donated her corneas. So I've seen the dilemma and the impact it has on on a family. I've also had a cousin who had a kidney transplant. So I come at this issue from a whole, variety of background. I think the most important thing I try to do is to help transplant recipients adjust to their journey of life that they're on. It's fairly confronting, someone taking out a person's heart and putting another heart in. And, these recipients often have psychological issues. They often have like what we call a fear of movement. They've been given this life-saving transplant and now they just want to sit quietly and make sure that it's okay. Whereas we've learned over the years that actually exercise is medicine itself. And the more that they can exercise around that transplant, the healthier they'll be, both physically and with their mental well-being as well. So it's really important that we help promote healthy lifestyles for transplant recipients. We don't want them ending back up on the transplant waiting list again. We want them to live years to come. Interestingly, there'll be a lady who's coming to these games. She's aged 79 now.
Wow.
She's had her kidney transplant for 45 years.
Wow.
And, she was in her early 30s, I think, when she got, or mid-30s when she got her transplant. She had 2 little kids with her at the time. Those kids have now grown up. They've had 4 kids of their own. And now she's fortunate enough to know her great-grandson, who's 2 years old. So, we often talk about transplantation as benefiting that individual, that one person. But what about the benefit to that family who have got to keep mum and then grandmum and now great-grandmum around for, all those extra years? It really is just amazing.
Yeah, it's multi-generational.
Yeah.
I never even thought about it, but you're absolutely right, it is. And I think these games are a phenomenal way to celebrate the success of transplantation and what you can still do. And I just think it's so inspiring.
It is.
So inspiring. So 17 sports. Do you have a favourite?
Well, cycling would be my favourite. I was down at City Beach yesterday morning having an interview with a living donor down there, and I was looking out on the beach and remembering 9 years ago. I actually jumped on my bicycle, a little bit of preparation, but I started heading east, and I rode my bicycle back to Sydney. So cycling's always been my my favourite, having ridden across Australia to promote awareness of organ donation and to raise money for transplant research. So that's up at Wanneroo Raceway, which will be a fantastic location. But there's also a lot of events that the community can get involved in, and it's not too late. We'd love to see you down at Kings Park on Sunday morning, about 7:30, 7:45, for our 5K fun run. Through beautiful Kings Park. What a magic park to be so close to the city. So that our Donate Life fun run actually kicks off the games. People can also come along to the opening ceremony at Optus Stadium on Sunday night. And then throughout the week, there's lots of different sports, from tennis to table tennis to badminton, volleyball, 10-pin bowling, lawn bowls, athletics, swimming. We've even got football on. There's not too many sort of contact sports, so to speak. These people do have precious organs on board, and we want to make sure that they look after them. But there's lots of different ways the public can get involved. But if you fancy a nice casual stroll through Kings Park on Sunday morning, we'd love to see you there.
Well, that sounds like a fantastic way to show our support for the event. And you're absolutely right. Kings Park is a beautiful, beautiful space. What a great place for a run.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. We also have a local competitor, Sam Lowe, who's a young fella from Rockingham. So, you've mentioned we've got a lady who's, 79 years of age, and then I know Sam's a youngster. So really there is no limit in terms of age in this games?
Yeah, look, Sam's a great competitor. I met Sam when he was just a little kid, because I've been involved, for so long now. And he's a great runner, and he used to win the junior, road race, which was really amazing. To think that he's, got a liver transplant as a 1-year-old. He's now 16 years old, and he's just a kid, at school and growing up, wonderfully. And I love the fact that sometimes these transplants actually don't define the person. He's just getting on with his life. I mean, that's what we aim to achieve. But it's really wonderful that he's, coming back to participate, in the games. He's been a really great young ambassador for us. And he's just, coming along in leaps and bounds. It's really beautiful.
Oh, that's great.
Chris, how do these athletes start off, and are they encouraged to participate, and then is there coaching involved so that they can get to this level of competition and participation? Yeah,
this is a good question, Specimen. This is the first games where we've held about 6 or 7 training camps for all of the athletes. We held 2 in Brisbane, 1 in Sydney, 1 in Melbourne, and about 3 or 4, I think, over here in the West. And we've also appointed a team coach, for the first time, and we've had talks on diet, dietitian from a dietitian. We've had talks on preparing, race day mentality. How do you actually, psych yourself, and what should you be eating the night before? And, you want to make sure that your body is primed and ready to go. And so they've been given, quite a lot of preparation, which should stand the Australian team in, a good position to perform well. Of course, we've got a really significant team coming from Great Britain and Northern Ireland. They're always extremely, competitive. The team from Hong Kong will probably whip us on the table tennis tables, and badminton, 2 of their national sports. We've got people from, the Italians and the Germans love this, and the French love their cycling. It's really amazing the different interests that they have. I think there's an Italian football team, so I don't wish our Australians, much luck. Hopefully the Italians will be diving around and the refs will be ignoring them. But yeah, look, there's so many. In all seriousness, everyone who takes to these games is already a winner. They've already beaten, some really significant obstacles in their life, and that's what unites all of these people, whether or not they're from America or Iran or Argentina or, just so many different, countries. Huge team coming from South Africa. And, we've got a really wonderful homegrown team as well. So, yeah, it'll be a really wonderful week for everyone.
Well, conscious of time, I know you've got a very busy fortnight ahead of you. From IPL Radio, we wish you all the absolute best. Congratulations on what I'm sure will be another successful game. We'll do our bit to highlight the importance of being an organ donor and making that decision nice and early. Yeah. Getting your name on there, and we wish
you converted me, Chris. It's certainly something that I'll take on board just from hearing the importance of it. That's for sure.
Yeah, good on you, Spaceman. Thank you. Thanks, ST, for your time today, and hopefully we might see you out there on Sunday.
I'll be about. We will definitely be there. All the very best, Chris. Thank you very much for your time, and good luck to both you and the athletes and everyone that's helped bringing this amazing event together.
Good on you. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.